everyone. Welcome to Entertainment 411. I'm actor TV host Adam Reid, and it is a pleasure to have you all with us. Shout out to the team for that wonderful picture they put up there. I haven't seen that picture for a long time, so thank you for making me look better than what I actually look like. All jokes aside, we've got a great show for you tonight. You know, on Entertainment 411, we've had writers, we've had showrunners, we've had casting directors, we've had actors, but it's very rare that we get a chance to see somebody or two people that do it all, that do it with grace, with professionalism, and with tremendous success. Today, on this episode, prepare to be inspired by two of the most influential voices in Canadian television. Tassie and Amy Cameron, the dynamic sister duo, are the masterminds behind Law & Order Toronto: Criminal Intent. With Tassie's acclaimed writing and show running on hits like Rookie Blue and Mary Kills People, and Amy's exceptional work as a journalist, author, and producer of awarding shows like Pretty Hard Cases, they have set the gold standard for storytelling. Today, we'll be exploring their journeys, their invaluable insights into casting and producing, and their passion for showcasing Canadian talent. That's right, Canadian talent and Toronto's rich creative landscape. It's now time to welcome Tassie and Amy Cameron to the show. Welcome to the both of you.
Hi. Lovely to be here and talk about making us look better than we are. Thank you.
I had to truncate your intro because there were so many successes in that thing. But it's such an honor to have you on the show with us. And more importantly, one of the commitments and one of the things I ask from both of you before we begin is I always want to leave people inspired. I want to leave people inspired. I want them to feel rejuvenated. I want them to feel and believe more in what they're chasing and what they're working on more than ever. And the fact that we get a chance to speak to you, I think, is a perfect way to be able to do that, because we are going to give them insights. And I'll be asking you some questions tonight to really provide some insights and feedback. But before we can get to that, I want to talk to you about your remarkable career. I'll start with you, Tassie. Rookie Blue to Law & Order Toronto. What was a turning point in your career where you felt, I'm really starting to make a difference in the industry?
I didn't start writing till I was 30. I worked in television and film, but I mostly in post-production in New York. So it was at that, so I kind of came a bit late to it. I realized I was in the right industry, but the wrong side of it. So I went to the.
Just out of curiosity, did you always have a sense that you were gonna get there, but it was just the stars weren't aligning, or were you had just no idea of wanting to go in that direction?
I knew I thought I was in the right industry. I thought film and television was the right place. I wasn't sure if I should be a director or try to be a director or a writer or a producer. And so I really just took the jobs. When I left New York, I was head of post-production at HBO, so NYC, one division there. So I sort of found myself in post. And then I was like, by the time I left, I was like, I'm ready to write. That's what I want to do. And I think that, I mean, I was really lucky. My first job was Degrassi, right? So my very first writing job, I had a very charmed kind of rollout. I think Rookie Blue was the one. I mean, Flashpoint, that was really exciting, but Rookie Blue was one that I had co-created. I didn't create Flashpoint. And I think seeing that show become so beloved year after year was really, I thought, oh, this is pretty special.
Out of curiosity, when you were on the post-production side of things, would you sort of look at things from a writer's perspective when you were working post, and you were always sort of thinking of different ways, the way you would have done it or the way you would have written that moment? Were you thinking of that, or were you really just focused on the task at hand? Because performers today and people who work in the industry are try and be really malleable, which is a great asset. But if you do too much, you're not able to be great in one thing. When you were focused on post-production, were you really dialed in on post-production, or was your mind always on writing in one capacity or another?
I think my mind was always on writing. I fear I wasn't amazing at post-production because I'd be sitting there watching a film print that I've seen 40 times, and there'd be a huge scratch down the middle of the print. And I'd be just kind of like, oh, wow, I know what happens next, but I'm always very absorbed in story.
She's still like that.
What?
When we watch her shows, Tassie's still watching and saying, oh, I wasn't really listening to the sound. I was listening to the story. Like it was.
I know. I'm always analyzing how I could have made it better or how it could have been better.
There's that complicity of that sister duo that we hear so much about. Amy, your journey began, correct me if I'm wrong, as a journalist and an author. How has that background shaped your approach to storytelling and production? How instrumental is it in the way that you approach storytelling?
Well, I think my background as a journalist has helped enormously in my role as a producer. So the ability to ask questions, to dig into something, to research something, to be curious, certainly helps as a producer. And in terms of the storytelling, I think it was, I mean, if you love story and you can dig into story and write it and read it and enjoy and embrace a great story, well told in any format, it works. So I think that I do bring some of that to the creative side of things, certainly more so probably at CBC, where I was doing a lot of development with writers that I didn't know. So it was sort of a beautiful combo of journalism and storytelling to try and help people realize their ideas. Now I think I probably lean more into, I mean, I think in part that might be because I'm a bit lazy because I have my sister as the showrunner and I know she's so good at story that I can rely heavily, you know, I'm not going to receive a turd on my desk.
Hey, I appreciate your honesty. This is what this show is all about. So you're bringing it. I love it. I love it. When casting Law and Order Toronto, Tassie, this is a hot button topic. A lot of people want to hear from you on this. What unique qualities do you look for in Canadian actors? And how do you think that these traits or those traits contribute to the authenticity of the show? Where do you put that in terms of importance for you and your team?
I mean, huge. Amy and I always say that the most important things to making a hit show are scripts and casting. Scripts, casting, scripts, casting. That is always our focus, number one, number two focus, I would say. Mm-hmm. And so casting is crucial, especially on a show like Law and Order. And once we kind of got our core group set, what's been the biggest surprise and joy of the process, I think, for all of us, is casting all these guest star roles that are different every episode. It's like casting a mini movie and looking for people in theater, looking for people who are new, looking for people who we haven't seen on TV, our screens 8,000 times, although we get those guys too. But like, really, it's been very, very exciting to have so many roles for Canadian actors. And you're looking for that, I think, first of all, somebody who feels real. In this show in particular, you really need to feel real. So you're trying to suss out any hint of schmachter, kind of like phoniness. But I think it's also somebody who brings a little sparkle of, whether it's humor or emotion, just something a little extra special to the scenes. Somebody who pops.
How involved are you in casting with regards to some of the big calls that are made on the show? I mean, obviously on the core, I would imagine you're very involved, but with regards to those guest stars, are you involved in every single step of that process, both of you, or is it one of you that's involved?
Tassie more than I am. I spend a lot of time in post, but Tassie spends a lot of time in the sort of prep side of things.
If somebody has one line, I've seen them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've seen their audition. Like I'd see down to parking lot attendant number 2. I see everything.
Wow. Really? That
is that important to me.
And for the actors who are watching, what's the patience level that you have for people who are not providing audition tapes that are either well lit, good sound, good backdrop, good lighting? Where can you look past that, or is that an indication to you of the lack of preparation that this actor is showing you, and therefore might bring that lack of preparation to your project?
That's a really good question. I try to look past it. I try not to focus on whether they've got a ring light or this or that. Like, I've seen excellent actors audition from, the side of their trailer on another set or in their boyfriend's bathroom, or like, that doesn't really faze me. I think it's making sure people can take direction from our casting director and pivot if needed. And if our casting director says they needed a lot of direction to get there, then that's more concerning to us, because we don't have time on this show.
And on a scale of very impressed to moderately impressed, where do you both stand with regards to Canadian talent, with regards to some of the people who have submitted to the show, people who have been hired or considered? or shelved for future episodes? I mean, where are you on that spectrum? How pleased are you with the quality and professionalism of Canadian talent with regards to the casting process you've been through?
I think there's only one answer to that, but we are blown away by the Canadian talent. Every single time I see our casting tapes come in, I'm amazed. There's people I've never seen before. There's people there's, as I say, theater actors.
It's an interesting process on Law and Order. We hadn't realized this when we first started the show, that everybody talks about wanting to be a dead body. This is sort of the throwaway casting role that people are hoping to get. I just want to be a dead body. But the truth is, on our show, the dead body is a key piece in the tease, right? But it's a little mini movie before the cops ever show up, where you have to sort of fall for this person who's going to become a dead body. You have to care about them, or you have to be curious about why they're doing the things that they're doing. And
very quickly too.
Yeah, it's been kind of a surprise to us how important it is to have an excellent actor in that role, even though that, for a lot of the show, they're on a slab.
And out of curiosity, do you end the week with the dead body review of the audition tapes, or do you start the week with those to make sure your energy level's high? Where are you on that spectrum of when you review those tapes?
It's been kind of fascinating to see the scope of talent that comes in, and then and to sort of understand just how important it is. You need people who are strong enough to sketch out a character within this incredibly short time frame that the audience cares enough about that they want to stick around and find out who done it or why done it. And consistently, over and over again, we are reviewing auditions that are remarkable, the talent is extraordinary in Canada. We are trying to track it so that we can use some of these people again. Law and Order in the States, they are pretty good about this, where they'll bring people back in different roles. I think they have a, what is it? 3 or 4 season turnaround. So we're trying to track it and just bring people back who've been victims or who have been suspects or who've been the killer, and switch it up. So we've got an Excel spreadsheet that we're trying to track all the people so that we can start to go back to some amazing talent. But we haven't, I don't even think about it because there's so many amazing people.
Amy, actually, this might be for either of you. When you're working on shows like Mary Kills People or Pretty Hard Cases, how do you, and this is staying on the same line as talent, how do you identify or nurture new talent, both in front and behind the camera? Is there anything special that you do? How do you nurture that relationship and get the most of them?
We have tried very hard to be, to identify, we meet with a lot of people, we get a lot of references, there's a long list of people that we'd love to have a chance to work with. And certainly on Law and Order, maybe more than the other shows, just because Law and Order is so structured and has so many different elements that you have to keep at the top of your mind as you're directing, for example, or you're involved in some way. We do try to offer as much support as we can along the process, identify what it is with the person beforehand, where their soft spots might be, and then make sure that we're shoring those up. As I said, on Law and Order, it's a challenge to keep track of everything for us. So having a director or someone coming in who's got Tassie's excellent at working with emerging writers. There's a process that we sort of developed on Law and Order that is a bit maybe more hands-on than we were on other shows, where it's kind of fun to see people come in and bring something different. Law and Order, you've got to really operate within a certain guideline, or within certain boundaries. Whereas Pretty Hard Cases, it was such a delight. We just wanted to make sure that people had the room to express themselves creatively, and we would support them in whatever way we could on those shows. But on Law and Order, we tend to be a bit more hands-on.
And in terms of talent, we really rely on Sharon Forrest,
for cast.
Yeah, to point out, she'll say, I've been tracking this person. They're special. There's something special about it. And, sometimes they'll audition 10 times for us before they get a role, but we're clocking people who stand out And
were you
and-
specifically asking about actors? Sorry, I went on a tangent.
Yeah, no. That's actually a great point, because as actors, actors often believe there's like a yes or no answer. But what I hear you say, which I've always believed, is there's a not now folder, which is it's not right now. It's not a right fit for this role on this project, maybe this episode, but we're watching you and there's something there. And I think actors don't quite understand how involved either producers are or the casting directors are in terms of scoping that new talent, of following that talent and being able to present it up to you. Do you agree with that? Do you think that not now folder is an important one for you, and that you remember a great audition, a great performance when you see one?
It's huge for us. The not now folder is bigger than the other folders. And honestly, I so respect actors who will come in over and over again and audition for different roles and show us different sides of themselves as performers. And it makes me like them more and want to cast them more. Even if they've, as I say, auditioned 6 times, it means we're trying to find a part for you, you know?
Yeah. I will often say it's sort of making a soup, try to find the right ingredients, right? Every single person plays a role in that to try and make the best soup possible. Speaking of creative spaces to provide to either performers or directors, etc., have you ever had an opportunity? Has there ever been a moment where somebody came in for a very small role, but because of the bold decisions that they took, you ended up actually writing in way more than you expected with that performer? And I ask that because often people in the industry will take a smaller role for granted, or they'll take it not as serious as the bigger stuff, which of course we know should never be the case. But has that happened on your end? Would you do that? Would you entertain that possibility if you were completely blown away by someone's performance to potentially expand their role in the series that you're writing?
Absolutely. I mean, Amy was just saying in my ears, the characters of Swallows and Chase on Pretty Hard Cases, they're the kind of comedic, goofy duo. And they were tiny roles. They were just going to be guest stars one episode, and we were so charmed by the performers that they became series regulars and lasted all 3 seasons. And I'm just thinking about a Law and Order. We had somebody play a tiny 1-line role in season 1, and we felt that nobody would notice if we brought her in for a big guest star role in season 3.
Wow.
So, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want people to notice. But
too late. It's just a little bit too late. You kind of gave it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but it's where somebody impressed us so much with 1 line where you could almost not see who they were, that we thought of her 2 seasons later and are casting her in season 3.
That's encouraging. That's great for people to hear. Tassie, as a showrunner and executive producer, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of balancing both the creative and the logistical sides of production? There's two sides. There's the movie business and the business of movies, and they tend to coincide quite a bit. How do you balance that? How do you navigate that?
Well, you worked with your incredibly amazing sister. You work with great partners who are better at the things that you're not as good at. Like I find sometimes the scheduling complicated. So, I mean, I think that people feel that for the most part, my job is to try and deliver good scripts, help pick a great cast, all the kind of creative choices. I would say the most challenging part is when our scripts are too long and we have to cut them down, or when things are going poorly on the floor. We've had a lightning storm and we have to lose 3 scenes that were crucial to the story, and we have to do it at 2 a.m. Or it's the kind of last minute production concerns where you have to make really fast and really smart creative compromises, and they often feel like compromises, and do it in a way that the story isn't harmed. Would you say that's probably it? Yeah.
With regards to directors and writers, I would imagine you've seen quite a few come and go. Really quickly, before we move on to another topic, what's the difference between good and great when you talk about a director, and the difference between good and great with regards to a writer? In your opinion, what's that little X factor, that differentiating factor?
Well, for directors, someone who digs into story, like absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, someone who will dig into it, understand it, or work to understand it, do the hard work of understanding what the story is, what the point is of every scene, ask all the hard questions, not let something slide just because you think it's gone through a sort of rigorous process at our end. So that's the first part for great directors. And then, I mean, obviously they need to be able to work with cast, they need to be able to work with production and understand production's needs. But I think that it really comes down to understanding story, because then that's the way that they can make fast decisions on the floor. That's the way that they can work with the actors to try and get the performance that we need in the edit suite. I think
of course, my doorbell goes off. Of course, had to happen.
Do you need to answer it?
We're good. We're good.
The doorbell.
We're good. You were saying on the writer front.
Oh, on the writer front. Oh, I mean, you know, you're looking for somebody whose dialogue sparkles, whose story adds up logically, who's great with character. I mean, you think of Law and Order, and it doesn't seem like it's that much about character, but it is so much about character. It's more the guest stars' characters. But the whole point of Law and Order Criminal Intent is what the criminal's intent was. It's all about, so it's those things. And then there's also a really, really important component to writing on a show with me or with us, or is what you're like in the room, what you're like to work with. Are you like agreeable, and do you fight for what you believe in, but know when to fold it? And are you fun, helpful, non-competitive, collaborative, smart, thoughtful, kind person? And that's really, I know that sounds sort of not counterintuitive, but sort of less important. But when you're becoming a kind of creative family for a season, you really need people who are there for you as a team.
And out of curiosity, when you have a meet and greet for the first time with somebody, whether it be a director, a writer, or any of the production team that you want to meet with firsthand, can you spot a non-fit right out of the gate? Do you know who's going to gel and who won't with regards to your team? Or is it a work in progress where you sort of have to give it a little bit of time for this to all come together? Or are you experienced enough now to know they either get it or they don't, and it's not going to be a fit on our team?
I think we've gotten it wrong in both ways. We've thought people would be a fit and they weren't quite. We've thought people were, oh God, that's the only person who's available, we'll go with them, and then they end up being a great fit. So I think we don't have a foolproof process. I think Amy and I are fairly intuitive about reading people, and Amy's the most curious, interested person in the world, and her questions, it's hard to hide behind her questions. So I think, what would you say?
Yeah, well, we have a no assholes policy.
Oh my God, that's mine.
Yeah.
That's mine. I use the same exact verbiage. Literally, no asshole policy on set. Wow, it's so important. It is so important.
So
yeah, so I think that helps separate the wheat from the chaff. So
yes.
Pretty quickly. But then beyond that, it's awfully fun to be surprised by people. You know, we wouldn't presume to be able to make a decision about somebody, and often end up doing more than one interview. You know, Tassie will meet with someone, and then I'll meet with somebody, like, just to make sure that we've got a sense of who this person is and what they're going to be like. But you never really know until they're in the thick of it with you.
We often work so hard to get on set. It only takes one person that has that attitude to just squander the creative flow and the creative potential of what could have been. So I absolutely love that. And speaking of being a very curious person, Amy, I'm actually curious to know your opinion of the unique challenges and advantages of producing content for a Canadian audience compared to an international market. Quite different. How do you sum up the difference? Or is there an advantage, disadvantage, a little bit of both? Where do you stand on that? I saw Tassie's look there. She's waiting to see this one. She's like, I'm glad I didn't get that one. I'm glad I didn't get that question.
Let me say something that sounds awful, though. I'm trying to figure out how to put it. I think Canadian audiences can be very hard on Canadian productions. And I understand that, because we are in a position of being, competing with massive American dollars on screen and American stars, and we're asking people to invest their time in something, and do they really want to spend 43 minutes with our show? You better show up and or do the very best work that you can. I think our crews and our actors, our directors are so very, very good, and certainly can stand and shine on an international stage, as we see when they travel, when they go to other countries and work in the States or wherever. The reality is that we don't have the same budget. And so it's a challenge, because that's something that is just a function of the nature of our country and the size of our country. So it's interesting, because you really do try to step up and deliver the very best content you can, and it's wonderful and exciting to see these challenges put in front of you, and then you can rise above them. And I think great content does rise to the top. But it is also, like with Law and Order Toronto, I think people were watching, wondering whether or not we could have it feel like the American versions, and whether or not we might absolutely blow it. And that's why I would have watched it. I would have turned it on to see just whether or not it stands up. And fortunately, people are responding to it, and they love it, and it does stand up, and that's great. But I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is just sort of getting beyond the label Canadian, which is too bad. I wish that weren't the case. I think Canadians have so much incredible talent. I wish that were the first thing that came to mind.
As you know, we've got a little scroller at the bottom that we haven't really plugged yet, but I want to do that now. People are hashtagging and they're commenting shadow on set. If you want to win a chance to win a day being a shadow on the set of Law and Order Toronto with Amy and Tassie, you go ahead and put in hashtag shadow on set. Plenty of people have been doing it. I do have a question from somebody who did put a question up in the comment section. I'm not too sure you would know this. This would maybe be for casting, but Skylar Petra says, background performers, have you ever heard of background performers getting upgraded because of a specific need with regards to their role or their implication in the scene? Has that ever happened on Law and Order?
I don't know that it's happened on Law and Order. It did on Pretty Hard Cases.
Mm-hmm. It did. I've done it on Rookie Blue. Yeah, it has happened.
Yeah.
And sometimes you become a family on set, and a certain background performer's so game and so awesome that you'll look for a chance to give them some lines, because it's as much because you just enjoy them. And
so what you're saying is attitude dictates altitude.
Sometimes with background.
Yeah, I could see that. And you were talking about Canada being on the forefront, and how important it is. We talked about the talent, the quality. I'm really curious, Tassie, how does Toronto as a setting, as a city, influence the storytelling and production choices for Law and Order Toronto?
I mean, it's one of the biggest things that we consider when we're forming our stories and shaping our stories. Obviously, the headlines that inspire us are Canadian headlines. So that's one thing. But then I think that we're trying really, really hard to showcase different areas of the city, different socioeconomic and kind of like just okay, if we're in a Bridal Path mega house one episode, then we'll try and be in Chinatown or Little Italy or a suburban strip mall. But really we're looking for authentic feeling locations that our viewers will recognize and be excited to see. And
it's been one of the most fun things about this is last season 1, we did stories that we really focused on Toronto crime as inspiration. We're able to branch out for season now, and having just wrapped season 2 and then into season 3. But in the first season, we were coming up a little bit against like locations and whether or not we could use actual locations. And there was a lot of questions about it. And it really feels like Toronto has embraced, so many of the businesses and places in Toronto has embraced this show, so that now we are asking people if we can use their name, we can use their address on the Dun Dun black screen piece of the show. And people are saying yes. And that is so much fun to be, I mean, I'm not in the writer's room, but it's so much fun for me to read the specificity of these scripts where suddenly we have a pizza joint in Little Italy that we're able to use the name for, or, different, I mean, we had it was so exciting. We got to shoot in the Rogers Center in second season. And that is so much fun. Like it is amazing to use that logo and to sort of embrace the actual place and what it means to Torontonians and Canadians. It's really fun.
And it started with City Hall last year. It started with Mayor Chow allowing us into City Hall to shoot our Crack Mayor episode.
Oh, wonderful! Just a great in there, yeah.
So it's been thrilling.
It's been really fun to watch the city embrace the show.
Did you really quickly? Did you think it would take on that big of a role in the writing, or has it sort of metastasized to that as the writing has continued?
I think on this show that we suddenly are daring to dream big, even down to the smaller scenes. Do you think Batty Alley Pizza will let us shoot a scene there with their, yes, we'll try, or do you think Jan Ag will let us use one of her restaurants, or do you think that we'll get into the Rogers Center and be able to shoot like things I would never have dreamed of in my whole career? I mean, the Rogers Center more than Batty Alley's Pizza, maybe, but like people are happy to have us there and happy to have their names. It lets us. And it lets us shout out to things we love about our city. It's like, why set a scene in a nowhere land when you can set it at your favorite sandwich shop?
Just even small things like we've got a fundraising scene in one of our episodes in season 2, and we managed to clear and use the name of Sick Kids. So that's like, as a fundraiser, everybody who lives in the city knows about the fundraising efforts of Sick Kids Hospital, and suddenly we're able to, it's kind of exciting to see that we can showcase that.
A little shout out from time to time, never hurt anybody, little props to our city. That's great. And one thing's for sure is the people who are watching right now are absolutely loving this. The hashtags are coming in. 2 more questions really quickly. Amy, this one's for you. Do you have a suggestion for a co-op internship? I'm a student in film and TV production at Humber. Do you have any kind of process or internship available? And I believe it's Jamie Hill. Jamie Hill says, do you consider actors more that have a film experience to do the TV shows, or do you want to work with actors that have a lot of experience in TV? Does that even make a difference on the casting for you?
It doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference on the casting. So for sure, film, theater actors, we love seeing everybody come in. And Sharon does a great job of trying to find people. But yes, very keen on anybody who can sell a moment. In terms of the internship, Cameron Pictures did offer has offered an internship in the past. We're trying to figure out whether or not we're going to do another one. And we haven't yet decided. It's a challenge because we are such a tiny company. So it's a tricky thing to take on sometimes, but usually if we are going to offer it, we post something on our socials, or you can reach out and ask us. But right now we haven't really landed on what we're doing. So
when you look at everything that you've been able to build as this dynamic duo, as I introduced you at the beginning of this show, and when you look back at what you've been able to accomplish, how does your partnership between each other influence sort of how big you can dream, or how big this creative process can go? And what strength do you bring to the table I'm sure there's moments where you get at each other. But how important has that partnership been for both of you? Would you say it's instrumental in where you are today for both of you?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't have ever dared to start a production company without my sister joining me. I wanted to. I wanted to be part. Being a writer or even a showrunner was not satisfying enough anymore for me. I wanted to understand the budgets. I wanted to understand distribution. I wanted to have a seat at the table on that stuff, on the stuff I was working so hard on. So I was very, very keen to do it, but I wouldn't have done it without. And I think the partnership, there's something to be said for somebody that you trust with your life, like that you know will not screw you over. I think no, like I mean, that trust is impossible to not. It's not impossible. It's hard to build it, and to just have started out of the and shared taste, shared sense of humor, shared taste in people, shared no asshole policy, like so many values that we share, along with the trust, along with the creative instincts. I mean, it's just been amazing.
Amy?
Yep. Ditto. No, I think it's, I mean, it for a long time, I resisted the idea of doing this company with Tassie, just simply because she was a big fancy showrunner and I was working as a production executive, and I didn't know that I would want to produce, and I wasn't sure. And then ultimately I couldn't come up with a good reason why. Like, I love spending all my free time with my sister, so why wouldn't I enjoy doing something brand new and exciting with her? I think we started the company having sort of a shared vision of how big we wanted it to get or not, and what we wanted to focus on, and being creative first, and making sure that we were working with people that we enjoyed on a daily basis. And we've managed to maintain that. And, you know, when there's rocky moments, there's no one else I would rather go through that with than my sister. We're able to make each other laugh and have each other's backs, even when maybe we don't. You know, I know that if I'm frustrated about something and I need Tassie's sort of input, I have a shorthand where I can say, this is it. And she trusts me enough to be frustrated with me. For example, like, oh, okay, I hear you. I'm going to try and help you navigate this moment, and vice versa. And that's pretty lovely to have that kind of shorthand with a business partner.
I want to be, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I lost that. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we do spend a lot of time together. We are each other's first phone call and last phone call of the day, which might drive people crazy, but it's fun for us. We really enjoy each other's company.
It definitely shows. I want to be respectful of your time. I've got one last question for you, but before we get to that one, I want to take a few more from people who are asking questions. So some rapid fire questions, if you will. Shane Smith asks, how important is sustainability being shown in the industry, especially for you? Where is that on the priority list?
It's huge, and we have joined forces with Cameron Pictures and Lark, which is our co-production partners in Law and Order, are part of Producing for the Planet now. We are committed to sustainable action within our production behind the scenes, but also in front of the camera. So we are trying to do a lot of, like, you won't accept one. It was a great learning moment for us. Except for one scene, you won't see takeout containers in our show in second season. We have tried to show bicycle cops, for example. We are trying to show, green vehicles when we can. Behind the scenes, we've done a ton. We've shifted a lot. We've moved away from a lot of the practices that you're used to in the industry. We don't print scripts. We really, which is a minor thing. We try to reuse wardrobe as much as possible. And we're using green vehicles to travel cast and crew as much as we can get them. We are really trying to have that conversation as we're having every initial conversation. It is an incredibly important topic for us.
For guest star or day player roles, what percentage of the self-tape requests are non-union versus union for Law and Order?
I think aren't they all union?
Yeah.
I think they're all union.
We work contract, so yeah.
So they're all, yeah, of course. And then if there is a need, then you would have to either argue the case to the union to have somebody be non-union to audition for it. Completely understand on that. Tim Kerrigan says, you've touched on locations being characters, but can you speak to the music's role as a character in your series, how important music is, and if you've had any trouble licensing any kind of music that wasn't originally composed by your music supervisor?
Well, we've got a composer and a music supervisor. Our composer, Clinton Shorter, has managed to nail the Law and Order Toronto tone beautifully. And that's really exciting. Like it's lovely to be able to lean in. We don't license a ton of music for this show. Interestingly, I think we thought we probably would license more. It is incredibly fun to place music in, even if it's just deep in the background in a bar or whatever. We really try to highlight Canadian artists where we can. Not always. Sometimes we want a really recognizable song, and so we sort of go big on that. But it is really fun. The music piece is incredibly important and a lot of fun to work on. And we, again, because we love Canadian artists, we try to focus on that.
That's great. That's great. Before we let you go, looking back at your career, you talked before about coming to the end of your career and saying, damn, like there's still so much more that I need to learn, or, you know, I've got so much more room to grow. But for the sake of looking back at everything you've accomplished for the both of you, was there a moment where there was sort of a fork in the road where you had a choice to make? Because a lot of performers and a lot of people who work in this industry are often pitted in that situation. And sometimes they've got to make a tough call to either follow their gut or go for it, or maybe move on to something else. Have you had a particular moment or project that stands out as either a turning point for you or something that you're really proud of looking back and that you can, you know, ride off into the sunset knowing that you're involved in that project?
I don't know if this is the same for Tassie. I am incredibly proud. It was a turning point and also a moment of pride. And it's pretty hard cases, the first season.
Me too. Same.
Is it?
Yeah.
So we were supposed to start prep on the Tuesday after the world shut down in COVID. And it was one of the most terrifying moments of everybody's lives, right? Everybody's freaking out about this. Navigating COVID, navigating keeping our crews safe, trying to figure out this mysterious thing that was potentially going to change our lives forever, and then still do great content and make decisions like, okay, our cast can't come within 6 feet of each other. How do we show intimacy? Like, how do we address, you know? And for me, it was probably like, I think for Tassie, it was probably the story and the creative. For me, it was the production madness of really trying to figure out, how do we test people? How do we keep them safe? How do we do all of this? And navigating that while also trying to keep my young children feeling safe and comfortable and moving forward was a moment where I feel like I could, when I finished that season, I thought, okay, I can do anything. Like you could ask me to become a race car driver and I will become a race car. Like I will take apart that machine and figure it out. Like I was so proud of navigating that and keeping everybody safe and finding our way through. I think we were the second production back. So it was quite in Toronto. So it was big.
It was huge. And for me, it was, well, Amy was dealing with that probably way more important in a way component of for safety and health and life and death stuff. I was trying to grapple with a show that we'd pitched as a buddy comedy with two cops at a time where, you know, Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, like suddenly that happened right around the same time as well. And suddenly we couldn't just kind of skate over race on any level.
He was murdered in May, I believe.
Yeah.
And there was, yeah.
We were just suddenly like, how do we tell a funny, and also like propaganda, defund the police, like how do you tell a funny cop story that it takes race into account? Was one of the more challenging experiences creatively of my career. And again, like Amy, I could probably, like, the way that the fact that we figured it out at all is a blessing and a miracle, you know?
Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure, having you both with us on the show was absolutely fantastic. I want to fire off a couple of comments that people have put in. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Hope to work with you one day. Bon travail. Hope to work on the show in the future. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. Thank you for your time and your expertise and answering so many questions. Huge fan of Law and Order and obsessed with Pretty Hard Cases. Congratulations on your success. Obsessed with Law and Order franchise. Getting my union card soon, so you never know. Hope to work with you both someday. Well done. And Shane Smith says, keep up the amazing work. It was awesome. Before we let you two go, of course, as you know, we do have the contest that is running to see who will shadow you. So I think it's the moment for us to now figure out and find out who will be the big winner of the hashtag Shadow on Set. Craig Weiss also says, thank you for sharing your time, great insights, and warm energy. Much appreciated. And Cheryl says, thank you so much for being here. So without further ado, let's find out who will be the winner of our hashtag Shadow on Set. Let's get a little drum roll, a couple of entries there. Let's see, who will it be?
Oh, right.
Who will it be?
Oh, how did
Boris Melikov. Boris Melikov, congratulations. Boris did put up a message saying, love to have a small speaking role on that show one day. I'm going to keep working hard to get there. So Boris, this is your in, Boris. Here it is. This is your opening. All jokes aside, Amy, Tassie, when I was approached to host this episode, specifically with the both of you, one of the things that I wanted to accomplish was bring a more humanistic approach and understanding and perspective to producers. And I think it's really important to see who you are, what type of people you are. And I think that shined through with the time that you were gracious enough to give us. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here on Entertainment 411. It was an absolute joy. Your insights will be incalculable. And again, wish you nothing but the greatest success on all your future projects. And before we go, did you want to send off a quick little message to those who are watching, potential talent, anything about people who are thinking about maybe pursuing their dream and going for it? Do you have any final words to lift us on an inspirational note?
Stick with it. It's awfully fun. And this industry is awfully fun. And it's a tiny industry. So though we may not have met yet, no doubt we will at some point. I'm amazed at how many people, former students that I met at Humber a zillion years ago when I was a production executive, are now working on the set with me. Like, it's quite extraordinary. And I think it can feel like this business is big and unwieldy and hard to crack into. And ultimately it is quite tiny, weirdly. But really so appreciate all of you coming to listen to whatever it is we may have had to say. Really nice to be invited.
Yeah. It comes back to the no asshole policy, doesn't it? In one way or another, it always comes down to that. Thank you both. You were awesome. Thank you so very much. Congratulations on the success. And for everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for being here at Entertainment 411, powered by eBoss Canada. Special shout out to Charlene Richards for always bringing the energy and the great guests. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow our page for more right here on Entertainment 411. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.